And now, here with another designated podcast are Teddy and JJ.
Hey everybody, it's JJ and Teddy. We're here for another Designated Writers podcast, and it's the final one of the 2020 campaign. So we'll be talking about all the stuff that's going on now and look back on these troubling times in 2020.
What a sordid 2020 campaign it's been.
It is the definition of sordid, I guess.
We're looking forward to 2021. Happy New Year. Can't be any worse. So hopefully things will turn around. JJ?
How things have changed since we did the end of the year 2019 podcast. So great I don't even remember it, but nevertheless. All right, a lot of good things going on. Let's talk about a few quickies. One would be the NFL. It heads into its last week where the Cowboys amazingly have a chance to win their division. In fact, probably will, because Washington is a shell of itself. And the Cowboys, all they have to do is beat the Giants, who don't even have their quarterback. So that seems to be a little bit sordid. MVP seems like my boy Aaron Rodgers has gone to the forefront. And there have been some interesting things. Teams have risen and fallen. The Rams up and down. The Cardinals up and down.
Bears.
All of a sudden, the Bills are a potential threat. So
they haven't lost a game since the Hail Murray, I don't think.
They have been they've been getting it done with Josh Allen, and I'm sure McDermott will be the coach of the year. It seems like he should be. Anyway, it's been an interesting year in the NFL so far. Of course, 7 teams will make the playoffs, and maybe even the Cowboys will be one of them. We know the Saints will be one of them. Whether they can get the number 1 seed or not depends. But the Saints have been playing pretty well.
Yep, and Dub Jones back in the news for something he did 69 years ago, and we can use as much Dub as we can get.
Right. All of a sudden, you think we hadn't mentioned Dub Jones enough. He just turned 96, which we should all hope to have.
A spry 96.
But when Alvin Kamara scored his 6th rushing touchdown, they made a big deal about how he's the first one to do it since Ernie Nevers. Now, we never talked much about Ernie on the previous podcast, mainly because he's been dead for 50 years or so. But left out of that was that Gale Sayers also scored 6 touchdowns in a game, not all rushing, and so did Rustin's own
Dub Jones,
who scored 6 touchdowns for the
Cleveland Browns in 1951. They were playing a worthy opponent. Gosh, who was it? They were very good. It might have been the Bears, but it was a big game at the time, and they smashed them.
And we have come to find out through high-level designated writer sources that kind of a neat thing's has happened with that as well, which I think this goes on a lot more than we think it does, but it's always nice to hear when something like that happens. Yeah,
we discovered that Kamara and Dub Jones are Zooming today, so they can congratulate each other, and it's on Dub Jones' 96th birthday. We're doing this on Wednesday. So, no, we're doing this on Tuesday.
I don't know what day. During Christmas, I never know what day it is.
I messed up. But happy birthday to Dub Jones, and good for Alvin Kamara, who is one of Mr. Dub's favorite players.
Well, old number 86, again, scored 6 touchdowns in a game.
Listen, he was a stud.
Yeah.
Please go to YouTube and do Dub Jones 6 TDs. Watch some of this film of him running back in the day. He probably wasn't 115 pounds when he was a state champion at Ruston High in 1941, their first state championship. And then that was with Hoss Garrett as the coach. And it was a fascinating team. First of 3 for Hoss. State championships. And then, like all the Joneses, he was a late bloomer as far as physical goes.
Made the Pro Bowl in the 51 and 52 seasons. 51 is when he, as Teddy said, set a standard. I don't know if it's necessarily a record, but it was against the Bears in a 42-21 win. He had 4 rushing touchdowns and 2 receiving touchdowns, and he was, in fact, quite the stud. He was for the Cleveland Browns of the AAAAAA.
Right. And
then
they won 2 or 3 National Football League titles. And then, of course, he coached for a long time. He coached Jim Brown, Leroy Kelly, to some other titles.
Well, anyway, the NFL is getting interesting. It's been kind of like baseball was. They're just trying to get through the year as best they can. And so far, so good. There have been some interesting things. The Browns played the other day with 0 of their top 4 receivers. That kind of happens, and when that happens, you lose to the Jets. And, it's kind of a week-by-week thing in the NFL, just like it was in college football. Speaking of college football, the college football playoff is coming up. It'll be Alabama and Notre Dame, Clemson, and Ohio State, the 2 games, the Rose Bowl, which is not being played in the Rose Bowl. Sugar Bowl, conveniently enough, is being played in
if you're from
the Sugar Bowl.
Louisiana, you got a lot better chance of getting to both bowls.
Interesting. I was wondering why Alabama chose, the number one seed gets to choose where they want to go. And you would think they would go to New Orleans rather than Dallas, since it's not significantly closer, but closer. And the answer to that is they chose it because there are more fans in the stands. In Dallas, they can have, I think, 20 or 30,000, whereas in New Orleans, they can only have about 5,000 or 6,000. So that's why Alabama's playing. I would have, all things being equal, I said, well, I'm sure they're going to play in the Sugar Bowl.
Correct.
In the Sugar Bowl.
And more familiar with it.
And they're more familiar with it. That's right. Teddy, I mean, until proven differently, LSU might have been a little bit of an outlier last year, but, you just pencil in Alabama and Clemson until we get told differently, right?
Can't see it any other way. Stranger things have happened, as we know, but it wouldn't be much stranger things in football.
Well, and one of the things they say about the college football playoff is there are no upsets. You kind of know what's going to happen. Now, Bama won it one year when they were the 4 seed, but I think they were actually favored. Mm-hmm. That was the year with Georgia. But it's just, Washington makes it one year, Michigan State makes it one year, but, you go into the Final Four and you kind of know who's going to win, which makes you wonder, well, when we picked 2 teams, we knew, do we really need 3 and 4?
No. Blowouts are a common occurrence.
The norm, yeah.
They're the norm. Just forget that. It happens all the time.
Yeah, I guess it's still, though, it's a standard that schools like to put on their skin, or they put on the wall saying, hey, we made the Final Four.
Oh,
it's still better than going to a New Year's Six game in this tiered system that we have. Now, your thoughts on the Cincinnatis of the world, the Coastal Carolinas of the world. There is no path, really, for them right now to get to the Final Four, right or wrong?
If somebody, I agree. No, they said basically they should just come out and say, y'all don't have a shot. And it's so obvious. But I think you may have to go to 8 just because they would be relevant and may keep some of these players playing. What's your opinion on that? Because they're not in one of the 8, that gives you more players that may not opt out.
Florida, their last game wasn't even over with, seemed like, and Kyle Pitts said, I'm gone. And, that's a Florida team that's going to play in a New Year's Six game, and that's not enough for them. For some of these guys who want to just go ahead and get ready for the NFL draft. It's only one more week. How much preparation is it going to take? And I hear constantly from NFL people who say so-and-so proved their worth in that bowl game. There were guys who you would thought, the BYU quarterback. He was nowhere on anybody's list. Zach Wilson. He was nowhere on anybody's list. He lights it up in their bowl game. Now he's mentioned as maybe a top 5 pick. So there is some merit to that. But that's the kind of the college football world that we live in.
It's the world we live in. I don't know that expanding it to 8 is going to make that much difference with how big the money is now to go into the NFL. Well, I think it's a crying shame, though.
Yeah, and one of the things that hurt everybody this is an outlier year. You're going to talk about that in just a little bit, but there was hardly any interconference play, so you really couldn't see. Clemson played Texas A&M like they did a couple of years ago. There was really no chance for a little guy like Appalachian State beating Michigan. That was a long time ago, but you just didn't have any of that this year to have a true measuring stick. The SEC could have been great or they could have been terrible. We don't know because they didn't play anybody outside of that.
Right, and BYU's schedule was totally different.
Yeah.
Tech played them, got hammered pretty good, went out there with not very many offensive linemen, the Bulldogs did. But it's an example of BYU's schedule was totally different. So they had a full training camp. They didn't have any issues out there in Utah at the time. Whereas like a team like Louisiana Tech didn't have that. They had 10 or 11 days of practice. So what we're saying is, in my view, this year, all the teams get a pass. Individual players, coaches, writers, broadcasters, you're supposed to go as hard as you can. But as far as teams, when I'm one guy out of 90 others on the team or 75 who travel or 83 or whatever it is, this guy and this guy might not be taking care of their business. And because of the contact tracing, JJ, was kind of laughable.
Yeah.
And you don't know who practiced that week. So it's each and every Saturday you didn't really know which Clemson. You kind of knew Clemson or Alabama was going to show up, but with everybody else, with not as many good players, you didn't know who was practicing or you did. The first thing I did when Tech ran out on the field, even though I had a general idea, was start looking for jersey numbers and see if somebody was a late scratch.
Yeah.
So, weird year.
A weird year for Tech. Why don't you talk about that a little bit? It was scheduling, not really snafus. It was Baylor 1 week that we're playing, we're
Yep.
not playing, that we're taking 3 weeks off.
After the hurricane came through, Tech was going to play Baylor, but some guys on the team who had done good. They had no, virus problems. But I'm going to go to your house and sleep because I don't have any air conditioning for 3 days. And so guys potted up, and then the virus broke out. So that messed up the Baylor game from Tech's standpoint. They were able to schedule BYU. Sam Houston State wasn't on the schedule. They got to end up being on it. But then November came along, and you had 4 straight cancellations. Yeah. And the last cancellation was on a Monday when Florida Atlantic canceled. And Cody Russ is the team's, his offensive team captain. He plays center. Everybody loves him. He's an academic star, straight-A student. His little thing on his tweet, his little pictures, his little helmet, his little football head at a helmet, and he tweeted out after they canceled the game on Monday, "I could cry." And he could, and I'm sure he did a little bit. That was 4 weeks in a row. And some of those you went up to Thursday thinking you're going to play. And just tough sledding. So mentally, I don't know. It's hard on all these guys. I saw it kind of close up. And it is tougher than you would think. Everybody, you felt a little COVID fatigue after a while.
Yeah, exactly. And switching over to LSU,
Mm-hmm.
They had a different issue. It wasn't really with games so much. They had a little bit, but not like Tech did.
Mm-hmm.
They had a problem with players.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, LSU, I don't know if you got a chance to see it. Their last 2 games, they played so dang hard. It was, and the Florida game was just amazing. It was just amazing, and it shows. I know it sounds kind of like an old, high school rah-rah deal, but those who stayed,
good for them.
Right, and played hard. Look what good things can happen to you. And they finished on a high note. Now that whole bowl, not going to go to a bowl, self-bowl ban was laughable. But they finished 5-5, which is no one's idea of a good season. But they won the last 2 games. They're guys they can puff their chest out about that. Yeah, they played in the rain against Ole Miss. They went into the fog in Florida. So it gives them something to be happy about, and we'll see what LSU's problems always. Not before it's always guys leaving after the season and going to the NFL early. This year they had problem with guys leaving during the season or before the season.
Right.
But the whole thing is just, whether it's Tech or it's LSU or it's BYU or it's Army, everything was just, you mentioned the word fatigue. Yeah, I can see what these guys are just tired of.
And coaches, too. I'm going to tell you, I saw some guys that just wore out from it. And it's day to day to day. It was and the main answer was, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just don't know yet. I don't know. We don't know.
We'll get back to it.
But it's day to day to day that became a grind. And I was happy, as you said, for guys who sticked around and wanted to play and played hard. Tech had some guys leave, and they think they're going to play in the NFL. I don't think they will. I hope they prove me wrong. But a couple of team captains said, okay, well, we want to play. I want to look next to me and see somebody who wants to be there on the field with me now at Tech. And so they all got their chance. The Bulldogs ran out of gas, but they were valiant. Thank goodness they got to play 10 games, got to go to another bowl. That was a hammering, by the way.
You think about where we've come in 9 months or 10 months, I guess it is. It seems pretty amazing from that night where the NBA shut down. Everything followed. Wow. The conference tournaments. Baseball got a late start. It is amazing to me, though, that, and I know baseball got a lot of grief because the Marlins were out partying or whatever early in the season, but baseball kept it together and had a World Series that had fans at it, and that's to their credit.
Yep.
The NFL moved games around. They put a game, realize this, on every day of the week this year.
Wow, did not.
They had a game on a Wednesday. They had a game on, obviously, on Thursday, but on Friday. And they somehow stuck it all together. College basketball, well, the NBA obviously did theirs with the bubble, which was very successful. And they have to turn around, seemed like 2 days later and start another season. But these leagues are to be credited for doing what they could. They got a lot of grief about just doing it for the money. Well, I'll tell you what, the rowing team's damn happy that they did, because otherwise they wouldn't have a team. And they did it for. You're right, they did it for the money. As far as we know, nobody has come down with COVID from an off tackle play or from a jump shot or from a double play ball. And I think we've learned a lot as we've gone along. Things have changed a lot. The word is flatten the curve don't seem to mean quite as much as it used to. But in terms of sports, 2020 was a year in which every league just tried to get through it, and it seems to me like they did.
Yeah, and congratulations to the ACC, SEC, and Big 12. back when all this started with college football, saying, we're going to try.
Yeah.
And the other guys were kind of late to the party. And some of the mid-majors like USA did the same thing. We may not get to play 12 or 13, but we're going to try. And so tip of the hat to them for that. It's hard to believe that back at the first of this year, the president was getting impeached. That's usually a big deal. Nobody even think about that anymore. that was all kind of stuff politically happened and racial discord, and we were thinking about ball, and so this wasn't the biggest deal, but it kind of gave you something to look forward to.
Oh, absolutely.
No doubt about it. So we appreciate, the Dodgers, the Lakers, Dustin Johnson at the Masters.
I got to tell you, that first golf tournament they had, it might have been Colonial. I think it was.
Yeah, I believe so.
And I watched it like it was I hadn't seen I couldn't wait to watch some sporting event.
Right.
And it was not the typical time Colonial was played. It was this, it was that, and I was riveted. And from then on, I went, okay, you know what? Game on.
Right.
We're going to play. It may not be like we're used to it playing, but we're going to play. And, they've done their best.
Yeah, a great distraction, a healthy one from all that, everything else is going on in the world. Tough year.
Well, and it's almost over, or by the time you listen to this, maybe it will be over. But we've enjoyed bringing you more Designated Rider stuff. We look forward to doing more in the future. And hopefully it'll be a more scheduled 2021 season like we're used to. But again, like they always say, everyone's day to day, but we seemingly are day to day.
Right. Leave this. What do you call? I got a dad joke calendar for Christmas.
All right.
So you're going to have to put up with some of these throughout the year.
Dang it. Okay.
This one's not that bad though. What do you call an elephant who nobody cares about? Has to do with football. Mr. Irrelevant.
All right. With that,
it can't get any. It's 2020.
With that,
We'll try to do better.
We'll say goodbye, and thanks for listening to the Designated Riders Podcast.
Happy New Year.